Well, hello everybody, Dr. Faske back with you again for another video, this time the fourth of the 5 etudes. Number 45 from the Bordner book, page 23. So we're going to follow the same procedure as before. I hope you have your pencil this time. I hope you're ready to write some stuff in your part. Let's map it out. So at the beginning we have the word allegro. And I'm going to let you look it up this time. I'm not going to give you the answer. It is a range of tempo numbers for the metronome from a slower end to the faster end. I want you to look that up, and I want you to write that in your part, okay? We are dealing with common time, which is another way of writing 4/4 time. And once again, just like number 43, we're dealing with a key signature that has no sharps or flats. So what key has that been in the previous video? Last time it was C major. And I think if we look at the very first note of the etude and the very last note of the etude, once again, in this case, it confirms that we're dealing with, in fact, C major. This is a little bit longer than number 43. It is not as accented as number 43, and nor does it have as many dynamics marked as number 43. So there's more room here for your own interpretation. And the interpretive things I'm going to kind of leave a little bit to you and your teachers. But I am going to talk about some stuff that can help you with the clarity here. This etude has more 16th notes than any of the other etudes so far. And there's a lot of repetitive patterns. So if you have the same thing over and over again, it's kind of like having a teacher that always does this in your classroom. Hello, students, and welcome to my class. I mean, how long is it going to take you to get tired and start falling asleep? It's not going to take very long. Now, if you're the performer, you can end up doing the same thing if you're not careful. So I'm going to help you go through this and sort of map out some ideas about how to make it more interesting in spite of the very little information that you're given. You're given one dynamic marking at the beginning, mezzo forte. Do we want to do that for 4 lines? I don't know. I mean, we can come and go from mezzo forte, but let's add some stuff in here. So it starts really with a pretty straightforward figure that's repeated 2 measures in a row. So if you're struggling with the printed music and everything that you have to do in the printed music, one of the things that I actually tell my students to do, even at the university level, is to just play the figure, the rhythmic figure, on the first note. So we're going to play the first 2 measures first, just on a concert C. We're not going to play all the other notes. I want to make sure that the rhythm has integrity. That was the first line. It's not as hard. I'm stripping away another thing that I have to do to make the complete etude happen. Don't be afraid to strip away various elements to do what you need to do to make that part of your playing better. So once I feel like I have a good mastery of the rhythm, then I'm going to play that first line, which incidentally I think is a good sort of first phrase idea, or at least a good first chunk to work on. I'm going to play the written notes. Now, that wasn't my best playing. I had, again, something else that quite didn't go the way I wanted. And this time, it was actually my breathing. I didn't feel like I got a really good breath to start out the etude. And this is actually something I haven't talked about yet, and I'm glad it kind of came up because it gave me an opportunity to talk about it. The breath that you take to start the piece of music, it's really, really important. In many ways, the sound that you want to get on the first note should be a reflection of the breath that you take before you start. So you know how your band director, before you play a piece of music, they give some sort of cue, some sort of pickup note, some sort of gesture before you come in to let everyone know we're about to play together. That organizational gesture allows everyone to get on the same page. Hey, we're all doing this together. And when we're playing by ourselves, I mean, I don't think your band director is going to come into the audition room at All Region and conduct you through your music. So you're responsible for doing that on your own. So take a second and think about the tempo before you start. Since I know you looked up Allegro and know the tempo ranges of that marking, now you're going to have the ability to have that tempo going in your head before you start. Sing the first couple bars of music before you begin, and then breathe in the tempo of the music and in the style of the music that you're about to play. I felt like that went better. Now, I don't think we're done. So we're going to talk about this first line in terms of what we can do to make the music a little more interesting than what's printed on the page. So in this case, we're dealing with the same rhythmic figure for the first two bars. I think it's really easy to have a crescendo for the first two measures and then a diminuendo. A crescendo for the first measure and then a diminuendo for the second measure, so that we're growing and then coming away. So I'm going to try to demonstrate that for you. And then for the next two bars, I might just make a crescendo happen for both of the next two measures. So you needed to discuss this with your teachers to sort of figure out what makes the most sense. But the point is that in the audition room, if you have a clear idea of what you're trying to say through the instrument, the player that really gets comfortable with all of the elements that are printed on the page will do well. But the player that's going to set themselves apart is the one that takes a little more thought in how they can make the etude something special. So don't be afraid to do that. So if we continue on from the first line to the second line, now we've introduced a note change on the eighth note in beats 1 and 3. Before it was the same pitch twice. Now we're adding another element. Now this is another one where I talked about sequences in a previous video. This is a perfect opportunity where we have a repeated figure where we can stack and make it a little bit louder, or start louder and get a little bit softer. It's built into the music. In fact, in most cases, the logical thing to add would be some sort of change based on the sequence. So then we go through to the third line, and now we've flip-flopped the rhythmic figure. We're starting with the 16ths, and we have the eighth notes on beats 2 and 4. And so that one, to me, there's a perfect opportunity for some shape in there as well. And now we're on the last line. The last line is a different variation on the rhythm. Again, now it's eighth notes on beat 1, 16ths on beats 2 and 3, and eighth notes on beat 4. And then the pattern changes for the last two bars. And it's very much like the beginning. So they kind of bring that recap idea back at the end of this etude as well. So that is my breakdown on number 45. What can you do to take it above and beyond the printed music on the page? Over time, this will become easier and become second nature. We clearly want to make sure that we have the rhythms, the correct key, and all the other markings that are on the page taken care of first. And that's great, and it's awesome, and you should do that, and you should be proud of yourself if you can. But then ask yourself, what can you do to make it even better? I'm going to give you one final playthrough of the entire etude from the beginning to end, and we'll be done with this one.